Enjoy the ride with Crystal Petry, consultant, so inspiring.
Hello, I'm Crystal Petry, and welcome to 60 Minutes With. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, make sure you subscribe to my channel right now. On this week's episode, we are going to learn all about STEM: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We are going to learn how STEM is beneficial for our kids right now in school, but also how it will benefit them once they enter the workforce. And here to educate us on all things STEM, we have Miss LaChandra Cobb Eaglin. So welcome to the podcast, Miss Eaglin.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for allowing me to come into this beautiful studio with this beautiful background for you to educate us on STEM. So as we get into this, let's first start off by you telling me and telling my audience exactly what your title is and what you do within the Beaumont School District in Beaumont, Texas.
Okay. I am the STEM coordinator for the district, and what that entails is I coordinate activities. And I think that I have expanded on the big picture or what the overarching title or responsibilities are. So I began with the elementary. Elementary students are involved in STEM clubs that consist of either robotics, makerspace, coding, those things. Then you go to the middle school, where now those same students can choose a STEM elective. The elective, once again, is makerspace or robotics. Some campuses have them combined as one, and other campuses have them separate. But the goal in having that is because once they get to the end of their middle school career, that all students have to choose a pathway that's going to be their focus in high school in hopes to get a business certification or something extra. Okay. And so Makerspace will gear those students through engineering. Robotics is just what it is. If a student is interested in that, we now have a clear robotics pathway so that when they leave high school, they can get a certification in engineering, or we're building to have them get a certification in robotics and take those experiences that they have with us into the workforce, even while they're working through their next level.
Okay, excellent. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about STEM in the education. How does STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, help children and high schoolers, teenagers with problem-solving skills? How does it help develop that?
Well, let me talk about the engineering process. Okay. So in the engineering process, students are given a problem, it starts with a question and asking lots of questions about the problem. So you're doing some research. Then the students have to imagine, how can we fix that problem? Or, how can we help? What can we do to play a part in a role that can condense the issue that we're having? And once they can imagine that, they start planning. And they're doing this in teams. So they start planning and creating. And when I say creating, so if you are speaking of putting toothpaste on a toothbrush, which is some of what our students just got through doing, the juniors in the engineering, but they had to do it through the Rube Goldberg process, which they had to take 6 simple machines and make it into one, make it ridiculously difficult, but the ultimate goal was to get it on the toothbrush.
And they had to use the machine to get
the machine had to make the toothpaste come out and onto the toothbrush. So doing that, so they had to create a plan to how to do that, draw it out, and then test it and experiment, which is your experiment, and work out all the kinks in it. So you're still thinking, okay, this part didn't work, so let me go back and readjust this. Let's go back, look at the plan, where we got stuck, how can we readjust it? So then they're improving is the next step. And then you're asking more questions because you're running it over and over again. And once they are sure about what they have as a true product, then we ask them to present it. So you're building students up to be productive in the workforce, whether it's a degreed or a non-degreed profession. But it's getting those brain cells working, expanding, moving, and so that they will be accustomed to working on teams. They'll be accustomed to looking at a problem and not be afraid of it. They'll be accustomed to being a problem solver.
Well, there's a saying that goes on, communication rules the nation, or something to that extent. How does STEM help students with communication, whether that's in a group, on a team, in the workforce? How does STEM right now help them with communication?
Because they have to be placed on teams right now. So they have to be able to communicate, learn how to communicate with each other. First, you have to recognize what each person on the team brings. So you could be the shyest person,
Okay.
and all you want to do is the drawings, but somebody has to communicate what the plan is so that they can understand that what they need to draw. But then that same person has to relate right back to their team why the drawing is that way. So in that aspect, once you're on the team, you're on the team. So the team communicates. That's a non-negotiable. So that's teaching them how to do that. And it's also having students work through the frustration when something doesn't work the first time. You don't quit. You don't just say, oh, forget about it. No, you go back, you keep working it. So you gotta keep talking to one another. And the ultimate goal, where I said the presentation, is to teach them how to communicate to the world, to stand up in front of a crowd and explain your process and what you believed in, and how this product is going to help somebody in the future.
There are several students, obviously, who love STEM, science, math, technology, all of it. But there's also students who maybe don't love it, maybe like it, maybe hate it. How does STEM, as you have it incorporated into the school systems, help those students who maybe don't like STEM, maybe don't like math? How does it help them to at least have an appreciation for it?
Well, that's an excellent question, because STEM is everywhere. So I'll use me as an example. I can do math. I can do math very well. Do I like math? No. So STEM does not necessarily have to lean towards math.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of it is STEM is a separate science, technology, engineering, and math. So you're going to find yourself in one of those.
Okay.
I happen to personally find myself in the science category. But for folks who don't like to talk so much, they may find themselves in the technology category. You know, a kid or a student who does not see themselves as capable of being an engineer, but there's so many types of engineers that they're finding along this path that they can and will see themselves in. There's something for every student. And math, that's for those special kind of who love data, which I happen to love data, but do I want to do it all the time? Maybe, maybe not.
How can what the students are learning in the classroom, for example, you just gave a wonderful example about the students using the machines to get the toothpaste onto the toothbrush. How can things like that they're doing and learning in the classroom help them in the real world when they walk into a job?
Well, it's going to, because hopefully all jobs have some training. Okay? And you have to come with certain skills. So this builds their skill levels up. So they become a standout from the very beginning, because they're constantly learning how to work together. And on a job, there's very few jobs where you're working just alone.
Sure.
Even if you are, let's say, a journalist, a freelance, you still have to communicate with other people to get your product out, to get your story out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As a journalist, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that example. Okay, so how can STEM help kids and teenagers, of course, in the classroom, in high school, on the job, but my question is, how does it help them lifelong?
Critical thinkers.
Okay, expound on that.
Being a critical thinker, because you have to think big and you have to learn how to think critically. So we're teaching them how to take something small and building steps to something big, but at the same time taking something big and seeing the relations all the way down to the smallest part. You can use that anywhere, for anything.
It's true. You spoke about data as it pertains to STEM. How does STEM help with data analysis thinking in the high schools? And, I always want to put the focus on right now in the high schools, middle schools. I know you said that they have like kind of clubs in elementary school. How is all of that helping with the data analysis thinking?
Well, it's part of it, because you don't just do an experiment. Part of doing an experiment, you have to collect the data. So you have to see if it's correct. If it really works, you're collecting data all throughout the process. And when you present, you're presenting your data.
Now I'm thinking college here. What STEM education and STEM skills would help these students when they get into college, or maybe when they go into a trade school?
Once again, the critical thinking, to be able to work in teams, because nowadays, what the classroom looks like is different from when we were in school.
Yes.
And part of that is putting students in groups. And so while they're not saying teams, they're saying groups. But when you get to college, you're on teams. So you have to be able to function on those teams. In the workplace, you're on a team. So you have to be able to function. So we're teaching young people how to do that. So think about if you're building that at elementary, you're doing that at middle school, you're doing that in high school. You are forming or transforming young people into being already prepared, already ready to be in college. And when the verbiage changes and says, okay, you're on this team, they already understand it.
It seems to me, as I'm listening to you talk, Ms. Eaglin, that students in STEM, whether they decide to pursue STEM in college and even after that, or in trade school or after that the things that they learned in STEM is transferable in whatever they decide to do.
Whatever they decide to do.
Yeah. Okay, that is really good. How does STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, how does that help bridge the digital divide? Because we all know, or most people know, in the United States, some kids have access to internet and Wi-Fi and computers, but obviously some other kids do not. So that missing piece, that link, that lack of education there could be a hindrance for some kids. So how does STEM help bridge that digital divide?
Well, I find that statement interesting, because we always say that there are some kids that don't have access, when I really think that we should be thinking or saying there's some kids that don't have access where they are at specifically, because you may have a student who lives in a rural area that does not have access at home,
right? But
that does not mean they don't have access at school.
True.
And so I feel that we have to be very specific, because because these kids know more about technology and STEM than we do.
It's like they come here knowing.
Well, think about it. You put a phone in a 2-year-old hand. They know how to, when they don't want to get off that page and the phone is called up, so you got a phone call coming, they cancel it. How did they know that? How did you know to find that? Or my 8-year-old niece who's saying, "Nanny, let me show you," and I'm going, how do you know that? And so what was difficult for us, because we started when we had to actually do the programming just to get the sentence out. The programming is already done. They just have to type it. You understand what I'm saying? So I personally feel that we need to be careful on how we approach things when we say what students have access to and what they do not. What we need to do is show them the value in the technology that we have, and not just for TikTok, even though we found TikTok to be useful in some things, but they're already one step ahead of us. We're the ones that's trying to keep up, not them.
Yes, yes. And speaking of TikTok and globally, is kind of where I'm going with this. How does STEM help with global change? Right now, everyone is really focused on green initiatives, natural initiatives, climate change. How does STEM help with those things?
Well, that's good because STEM is a global push. It's not a BISD push.
Okay.
It's not a Texas push. It is a global initiative.
Okay.
And when you talk about that, when you're talking about energy. We teach students about alternative ways of getting energy. So they're doing experiments on the wind. They're doing experiments on water and all those things. And those.
Does STEM help with entrepreneurship, like growing and nurturing that in our young kids?
Yes, because think about it. Remember I talked about the engineering process. First, you're presented with a problem. Okay? And so then you have to imagine. So they're being innovators. So when you have a student or a team of students who are creating something to solve a problem, that's their product. They can now sell their product. They're an entrepreneur, and if that product is something that the world needs,
Yes.
and a lot of the products we use today are products that were created from NASA, from astronauts trying to survive in space, that
That's
we
true.
now use as ordinary products.
It's true.
Mhm.
It is true.
Yes.
So Ms. Eaglin, let's talk about you just for a little bit. You are the STEM coordinator at Beaumont Independent School District located in Beaumont, Texas. Why do you love STEM so much? Because in this interview, I can tell that you are passionate, like you give it energy.
Oh, well, thank you. I am passionate about anything that I do,
Okay.
but I really love STEM because I'm the S, science.
Okay.
I was the science teacher in this district for 13 years, an assistant principal. Initially, I was over science. And one of my mottos is living in the content you're in. I have many mottos, but that is one, living in the content you're in. And part of being in my class was you were going to get a whole lot of hands-on, labs, so that you knew you really got it. So coming to the STEM side of the district, we get to play all day long, or finding out ways in activities for kids to engage in, and that light bulb to go off. So I just feel like I fit because it's the S. I may not be the technology, that's my weakness, so I bring the technology team. I have a lot of questions that I ask. You know, the engineering I can still see because before they called it the engineering process, they used to call it the scientific method. So,
yes.
Okay, and so in math, like I said, I can do math, but do I want to do it? No. So I understand the kids that are sitting on the fence or don't believe they can do it. And so you want to celebrate them and build their confidence. So STEM is everywhere, and everybody can fit in one of those letters or give a contribution to it, and that excites me.
Ms. Eaglin, what is your, and I feel like you answered it a little bit in the question before, but what is your personal intention in the space of STEM?
My personal intention to grasp everything that I can find and pour it into every student that I can find.
Okay. How can we incorporate, and you've talked about it a little bit, how can we incorporate STEM into everything that our kids are doing? In schools, at home, even the part-time jobs. How can we do that?
Well, we are doing it, but not on the big scale. Because even when you're speaking about school, you think that, okay, it's just science, technology, engineering, and math, but you can
Yes.
bring it to the English classroom. And so, and I'll give you an example. So if you're talking about,
Is that the only one?
I'm not sure, if they call BU and they call Westbrook, then yeah, that'd be the last one.
I'll ask the question again. Question, how can you incorporate? Okay, so Ms. Eaglin, talk to me about how you can incorporate, and you spoke on it, a little bit, but how can you incorporate STEM into everything that our kids are doing? Elementary, middle school, high school, even part-time jobs, even at home. How can STEM be incorporated into everything?
Okay, let's start with home.
Okay.
It's already being incorporated. Your refrigerators, your, in the technology in the refrigerators. You have the ice makers. Of course, now that's old STEM. And so you now have the new STEM where you program your refrigerator, where it's connected to the internet. You have the faucets where you just wave over their hands because they're sensor motion. When they go to the restroom and all these things, that's all STEM. So STEM is out there. It's just improving on each other. The way we use our cell phones, the capability of our cell phones. I come back in the day before the cell phones when we had a beeper and thought that was a big deal. And now, and then we had oh my gosh, but the little plain cell phones, we couldn't see anybody.
Oh,
And
yes.
you remember, how do you bring it at school a little deeper? In my mind, you can take English, and they're talking about, usually English is talking about a store, or it's telling you about a place. You put those VRs on your head and take you to that place, so that they can really see it.
Absolutely.
In social studies, when they're talking about a battle or a place, because that's all over the country, we can take them there through the VRs so they can really see the connections. In science, and for those, when I was a science teacher, you were going to do dissections. I got a real big kick out of starting with the worm and cutting it open and telling them about the ganglion, which is the mass, which is really in evolution, that's the brain.
Okay.
And then to have them, so I would start there, and then all the way up to the pig, and I make them feel like they're surgeons and stuff, very rigid. And your lab coat on, your scapular and everything, making sure they were going to use everything right, because you're going to mess up an organ, a vessel, something. So, and they would get a kick out of it too. But now, you can put on those VRs and turn everything around. You don't have to cut anything open. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And even in sports, you can teach STEM through sports. So let's say that you are playing softball. So you can calculate the speed, the distance, the time. So you can take volleyball and teach them how to spike and talk about force. It's already here.
You know what? You have really just blown my mind, because I'm just so used to using this stuff, but not seeing until you pointed out so eloquently that STEM is all around
Everywhere,
us.
all around.
The smartphones,
smart board.
I'm using right now, the refrigerators, it is everywhere.
The toilets, you get up and they flush themselves.
That is STEM.
Yes, that is STEM.
Oh my God. We're just so used to
Taking it for granted.
We don't see
But
it.
there's a need right now across the nation,
Yes.
the world, because the issue before was war and the nuclear bomb. Now the issue is there's things in space that can target the Earth.
Yes.
Either way, you have to be prepared to either stop it or either join it. Which side are you going to be on? But we still need people. We still need the research. We still need the technology. We still need STEM.
We still need STEM. Yes.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's talk about the teachers.
Okay.
Now, I'm not sure what the curriculum is like when you go through secondary education to become a teacher, but I assume that they're not teaching STEM. I know they have like the science disciplines, the math disciplines, social study disciplines when you're learning to become a teacher. I don't know if they have a STEM discipline yet when you're learning, but how can you get more teachers, and specifically as a coordinator of STEM, how can you get more teachers involved in teaching STEM and involved in wanting that passion and that love that you have been talking about that the students need really to do anything?
You gotta make it fun
For the teachers?
for the teachers.
Okay, and how do we do that?
Oh, by training them how to make it fun. I try to make everything fun. As a teacher, it was fun. I didn't have kids that were tardy in my class.
Mhm.
I had kids running to my class. And so the key is how do you get that transferable? Because as a teacher, you know you have a lot of different roles to play,
Right.
and you only have a small amount of time to play all those roles in.
Right.
And so you have to be able to, I used to call it trick the kids into learning.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that by making it fun.
And then they don't realize they're learning.
Right. So, exactly.
Yes.
And so with a math teacher, I know one of my math teachers, Ms. Dumas, had a game teaching them the multiplications, but it looked like hopscotch outside. You know, you have to be creative.
Yes.
And then that makes it fun for the teacher. And especially if the student gets it,
Mm-hmm.
that adds on. That's just the cherry on top. That they got it and it was fun while they were doing it. And that experience for a student, they'll never forget it. So if they're taking a test, they go back to that experience of the hopscotch game.
Yes.
And because your brain is just storage. And so you have to be careful on how you teach them to compartmentalize it.
Mhm.
And so if you can teach teachers how to do that, you're going to be successful. And so will the student.
Now, is there, and again, I don't know,
Mhm.
is there a STEM discipline
I
for
think
teachers that
They're
are?
building it because I have
Okay.
been in so many different worlds. You know, I administrator,
Right.
AP, principal. I step in and out of that world. And so, but in my research, yes, there are disciplines that is building to where you walk out with STEM. But all you have to do is have a certification in one of those. Just
Really?
one of those.
To teach STEM?
To teach STEM. Librarians can teach STEM if they want to.
No.
Because you're doing it through what the kids think is play.
Okay.
So let me give you an example. Okay, we just had an incident where the barge or ship hit that bridge, right?
Right.
In the makerspace class, there is a lesson that's called breaking bridges. And so they have to build a bridge and then they have to test it to see how much weight on the design that they created can hold. So imagine going through that lesson, which all the middle school students had to do that were enrolled in Makerspace. This incident happens, right? And it's on the television everywhere. When I saw it, I was focusing on where the breaks were.
Mhm.
And then it brought me back to the curriculum. But imagine if you brought math into it, because it's talking about the angles, you know, the triangles and all those things, and have students, after doing that experiment, then watching that news clip, and then you bring in the math teacher, you bring in the science teacher, you bring in the history teacher about the history of bridges. Yeah, you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Then you bring in, let's say, the construction, you know, shop. What could we have done better? And you have all these different disciplines solving that one problem based on a real life world happening. And a coincidence, nothing's a coincidence to me, that they had already been playing with an experiment, but didn't know that it was something was going to happen with this in real life. But they could all get together to see how they could solve a problem.
I'm telling you, and I don't know if you can see it on my face, I'm trying to remain professional, but I can see, like visually see the stuff that you're talking about and see how STEM plays a hand in everything. And I remember that, that boat incident. I'm sure a lot of my audience does. It was on every television station, all over social media and they still talk about it now. It's been a couple months since. At least at the recording of this podcast, it's been a couple months since. Wow, okay. Is funding for STEM, is it expensive for school districts to have such a strong, and I feel like outside looking in, that Beaumont ISD has a very strong STEM coordination, I'm sure.
We're getting there.
In parts to you.
But I must give credit.
Okay.
STEM did not start with me.
Okay.
STEM did not start with me. STEM started when I was the principal of a high school.
Okay.
And oh my gosh, I want to give credit to her. A teacher who loves STEM, Joy is her first name. And she started it at early college, high school, as an initiative that Dr. Fassard wanted to bring in part into the district. And it was the 2 rooms. And the things that she was showing, I was so excited. And the panels, there were panels, but I had already been to the African American Museum in Washington, D.C. And so I was saying, Joy Schwartz, that's her name. And I was saying, ooh, we can use this for so many things. The light bulb was going off, and that was her jam. And then the next person that came in, she was enjoying playing and finding activities and all those things and finding different ways to introduce it to the students. Then I came, and then I just started looking at in a different way, looking at what the district had, what were the missing pieces, how you could bridge it all together, how you see it from the early childhood part, and how it moves all the way to the past high school. And so with that, you bring in robotics. Robotics was brought in by another person, and I was a principal at the time. And on my campus, I believe kids can do anything. And so it was just a club. And then it turned into a class, which turned into classes at other campuses because of our schedule design. And I was like, well, no, we can put this in the class, because I was thinking about the teacher. I don't want you to be bogged down all the time after school. And I was like, anything you want, anything you need to enhance this, because if you can go to competition, we gotta win. And so it built from there. Then becoming that, and it was like, okay, I need to make sure everybody has it, but everybody's going to be capable of duplicating what was done at the campus that I was on. And so that was my motive. So we went from one school competing at middle school level only officially to we're going to have 8 elementary teams competing on their own level. We had, schools, 8 schools coming with 33 teams. We had 3 middle schools to compete this year. We had both of the high schools to compete twice this year. And so 15 from the middle school teams, and 9 from the high school, and 33 from the elementary. And we started with one school with 10, 13 teams, and so we expanded.
When you say competing, what are you?
Competing in robotics events.
Oh, okay. So where are these events held?
All over.
Okay.
And how I started was I took several teachers from all 3 levels to the world competition. And so that's the goal. So I needed them to see what they were going to be putting in the students' hands. And some already had, but they were just playing with them, as part of a club. Mm-hmm. But I think big. So this is the end goal, the world championship, which happened to be in Dallas twice. So it was easy to be able to take them, so that they could see those kids at each level competing. And so then now with this year, they have an aha. So when they're working with the kids, they know that it's just not just to learn coding or just to see, you know, if we can do a controller, because they have to do autonomous as well, where the robot does something on its own. But they have the why. They have the why. And so can you imagine when now the teacher has the why, they can now give the why to the students. And those light bulbs still keep going on, and now they can actually see themselves in some part, because in doing robotics, there's a team for every different thing to get the robot built. Mm-hmm. So you have a team of coders, you may have a team of builders, you know, a team that's going to control the robot. Okay. And you put all those different teams together to be able to win. And so when they compete and they may have gotten enough points, but they got to go another round. So then they've got, based on what they saw, they got to go back and improve. They're doing the engineering process while they're playing the game.
And that really goes back to a question I asked a little bit ago about how do you get the teachers engaged and excited about STEM? Give them the why. Yes. So is STEM expensive to have in a school district, and where does that funding come from?
It is very expensive to start.
Okay.
The way I envisioned it in my head, yes. But there's a lot of grants out there. You just got to be able to tap into them, and you got to have some really good partnerships. We are very blessed to have ExxonMobil, who is our major contributor to our STEM program. And so that's how and OCI. So we have two heavy hitters that has contributed abundantly to make the things happen for our students in BISD.
Okay. Yes. Well, thank you to ExxonMobil and OCI.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do you think that emphasizing STEM, and that may be the wrong word, but do you think that emphasizing STEM so much in school is taken away from emphasizing subjects like that's STEM, history, language arts, reading? Do you feel like it takes away from the other subjects?
No, you just have to add it in, like I said before. Mm-hmm. So it enhances those other subjects. So when you're talking about the wars, the battles that these mm-hmm. kids have to remember, while the teacher is lecturing it, the kids don't have to look at a picture in a book. They can look at the battle through the VRs.
Right, that's true.
You know, like I said, if we're talking about in reading a book and the book is describing the pebbled streets, they're in that town through the VRs. Mm-hmm. So the description becomes real. You understand what I'm saying?
I do. Absolutely.
It's just like reading a book. Take Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. The books are thick, and there's different books that are connected. Then the movie comes out. So with my son, he was like, "Mom, can I go see the movie?" Sure. Anybody that reads a book knows that the movie is not going to be exactly like it.
Right. I feel like the book is always better. But
no, I agree. But the students have to realize that.
Yes.
So when he comes back from the movie, I have to stay up all night hearing his complaints. But I am secretly enjoying this because you're doing compare and contrast. Mm-hmm. You're analytically thinking, you know, and you're putting things together. You're able to explain your why of not appreciating the movie like you wanted to because you appreciate the book, pushing them to read. But STEM is movies. STEM is movies. Mm. So a kid that's doing that is building their capacity. I would ask my teachers to do that. Find books that had a movie to go with it. Show them the movie after, because I want them to be mad.
Yes.
Because then it gets them talking.
Yes.
It still gets them thinking. Yeah.
How does STEM help with kids who have different learning styles? And we all, I mean, I know we're talking about kids and teenagers, but even as adults, we all learn differently. How is STEM or can STEM adapt to so many different learning styles?
It does. Because remember I said you have the programmers, you got some builders, you have the ones that's doing the controlling. So everybody's not going to be that whiz kid, but they can do something with their hands.
Yes, yes. Does STEM programs effectively prepare students for careers that may not require a strong STEM background? And I was thinking about some, but as I was thinking, I was like, that's STEM, that's like based on what you've already educated us on. But, so go ahead with that.
Yes, because once again, STEM is everywhere.
Yeah.
So it keeps answering the same question. STEM is everywhere. They just didn't know it. They just didn't call it that.
Yes, yes. Let's see here. Does a focus on STEM education prioritize economic growth at the expense of social well-being or environmental stability?
When you say that, what do you mean by at the expense? Because I see it differently.
Okay, how do you see it? Because when I was preparing for this, I was wondering if so much focus and dollars and time and energy geared towards STEM, which is not a bad thing, but does that come at the expense or the cost of just social well-being?
No, because it can all tie in together. It's just, I guess you have to have a STEM frame of mind to be able to know how to put it all together.
Okay.
So that you're not neglecting any part of the human aspect of what you need to make it work.
We talked about this a little bit ago about the expense of having STEM. How do you keep up with the technology? Because the technology literally changes every single day. How can schools keep up with the technology that's changing to educate the kids to prepare for the ever-changing technology?
Well, it feels like it's changing overnight.
Yes.
But they're telling you. We're just not paying attention.
Okay.
They're telling you. So, long before something actually, go back to the face-to-face that we can now do with our cell phones. That commercial came out during something special. I don't know if it was some awards. I think it was some type of awards. And it was the one where you can put, it looks like your Alexa, but it wasn't called Alexa. I can't recall it, but it was just a little peek into what was coming to create a buzz.
Okay.
But before that, that's already been in technology magazines, that it was being created, that it was being researched, and those things. We're just not paying attention. So that when it finally does say, poof, Apple has a new product, Galaxy has a new product, or now you can wave your hand over a faucet and run water. They were telling you that long before. We just wasn't listening because we didn't think that would pertain to us.
Right.
We just kept it where it was in a lab.
You know what, and this is a huge pivot, but I was reading something a little while ago, and they said the Jetsons, remember that cartoon, the Jetsons? The Jetsons predicted Siri and Alexa.
Yes.
Because in the cartoon, he
Yeah.
would always
and
talk.
FaceTiming.
Yes.
And FaceTime.
Yes, in that cartoon, the Jetsons, which I don't know when they came
The
out.
flying cars. Okay, are you going
The
to be
70s or the
Are you going to
80s?
be surprised when the flying car really comes out?
No.
Okay. Do you know they're already working on it?
Yes.
Okay. So if they're working on it, they're already testing it out somewhere.
Yes.
Okay.
So it really isn't changing every day, like I initially thought. I mean, I just feel like it is.
Because the things that they're working on and that they have perfected, that have gone through the engineering process, is ready to be presented because they've already improved, reevaluated, and improve, reevaluate it, improve to make sure that this is a product that the public is going to use and it's not going to backfire on them.
Right.
And so, but think about how many products that is happening to. So then they're competing with each other.
They are.
Perfect example is Apple and Galaxy. And so they're competing with each other. So one comes out bam, and then the other one comes out bam, and then the other one comes out bam, and then the other one comes out bam. But they've been working on this all along, with a competitive spirit.
Okay. Now, I know, of course, we're talking about schools, and we're talking about kids in schools, and normally, to determine success, if you get it, it's an A. You get an A, you get a B, and then kind of less as it goes down, maybe you don't get it or you don't understand it. In STEM, how do you determine success on the classroom level and the school district level?
Classroom level is by the rubrics. We use a rubric.
Okay.
And so you get points based on where you fall on the rubric and based on the task to get through the entire process.
Okay.
And so let's say you weren't that successful, but you can get it back so that you can improve it because you're still going through the engineering process.
So is that that's not like the standardized testing, or is it like the standardized?
No.
Okay, so how are the two different?
Well, we don't have a standardized test
For STEM, okay.
But you do have a standardized test for science.
Right.
You do have a standardized test for math.
Mm-hmm.
You have an industry-based certification test in technology and in engineering.
Okay. And the rubrics is just, so explain the rubrics to me.
Okay, so let's say if you completed a task completely with all expectations for that, you may get 5 points. Okay, and then, but let's say that you missed certain elements, but you didn't miss all of them, so you may get 4 points. And let's say, you were midway, so you get 3 points. You may have tried, put a little effort in there, you almost was there, you get 2 points. Let's say that you barely put any effort, but you did try to do something, that's 1 point.
Okay.
To get a 0, you have to do absolutely nothing.
Okay.
And it's broken down in the project, it's broken down by each task you had to do to create the project.
I'm not in education and in no way bashing education. I'm a product of education. I feel like that's better than the ABC system.
Well, no, because after you put all those points together, it still equates to A, B, C, D, E. I mean, not E, or F.
Right. Which I get that, but the way that the number system is broken down, it still gives you points for things that you accomplished, and you can see where, okay, I got 3 points because I did this process right. I did not get these 2 points because I didn't do this right, as opposed to just, okay, you got this A, you got this B.
Right.
So that's just how I'm thinking.
But they do use that. They use that in across the disciplines. It just depends on what you're using it for. But it is available across disciplines.
Okay.
Across the disciplines.
Yes.
It's just at the end we have to change that into a letter.
Right.
But
right.
in doing that a rubric process, the student is still learning. Oh, if I would have done this, I could have gotten this.
Right.
And they do that in college too.
Right. They do. You're right. So you have been amazing.
Oh, thank you.
You have been so good in this podcast. Like, I don't even want to let you go.
This is my first one.
Is it? Hey, bucket list check.
Oh, thank you.
Bucket list check. Yes. So I have a few more questions for you before I, unfortunately, have to let you go. But how can we track the long-term success of STEM?
Oh, that's a big question. You wait till the end to give me such a big question. I guess the best way I can say it is to watch the world turn.
Okay.
Meaning, see how we progress. See how many problems we end up solving. See how many things we are improving on.
For STEM, and this is kind of a broad general question. Should schools focus on the rapidly changing job market? Because as you pointed out greatly during this interview, everything is STEM now. And it seems like just about every job market, there's going to be a STEM component in that. So should schools continue to focus on the ever-changing job market, or should they, I'm not going to say adjust, or should they focus on developing skills that would allow them to adapt to the ever-changing job market?
That point.
Okay.
Because if you focus on the skills and you give them the experience, and they're already changing with the STEM world anyway.
Right.
This just make them stronger to be able to enter that world.
Yes. And then they can, as you talked about at the very beginning of the podcast, it's all coming back. Being adaptable and the creative thinking and learning that goes with any job in any job market. Okay. Again, I do not want to let you go. I do not. This has been a great podcast, but I have to. And so my final question for you, Ms. Eaglin, who do you think would make a great guest on the podcast, but you have to help me get them on?
Me.
Oh, now this is a first. Please explain.
When I say me,
Okay.
this outside of being STEM, I would love to share my story, my journey as a mother. Transformation is the word, and I'll leave it with that.
All right. Well, all my audience, Miss Eaglin is going to be my first ever repeat podcast guest. Yay! So I'm very excited about that. And you will see her transformation story outside of STEM in season 3 of my podcast. So make sure you subscribe, you follow, you like, you comment. So when her story airs, you will be the first to know and watch.
Yes.
But thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
You made me feel so comfortable.
Oh,
It
good.
felt natural for some reason.
Yes.
And it didn't feel like it was an interview. It felt like
Thank
a conversation.
Thank you. That is my goal. We're having a conversation. So thank you for acknowledging that. I
Yes.
appreciate it.
Well, it was a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you. And I look forward to talking to you again very
yes,
soon.
me too.
Yes. And thank you so much for tuning in, watching, listening, and learning. You can get Miss Eaglin's podcast on YouTube Podcasts and Apple Podcasts, along with all of my other podcasts. And don't forget, you always have time to listen and learn on the go.
Come on, let's go on a journey. Sit back, buckle up, enjoy the ride with Crystal Petry Console.